World Economic Forum found that if we continue at our current pace, it will take 100 years to close the global gender gap. So we literally cannot get that wrong.
They're not afraid of four musicians. They're afraid of you.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have an amazing episode 285. For fuck's sake, how are we still on the air? Tonight we're going to have an episode where is Western Canada really just America 2.0? Or is it something else that we should be even more scared of? Or maybe Canadians? I don't know. With that being said, we're going to be having a conversation about 9/11. We're going to be talking a little bit about the different aspects of Jason Kelly from Alberta. Kelly, I'm going to call him Kelly because I don't want to soil the Kenny name, you know, that letter Kenny thing. And we're going to be talking about COVID in Calgary. So without further ado, let's bring in my co-host tonight, Mr. Buddy Nelson. How are you today, sir?
I'm confused. I don't know how many names I have.
You got 10, 20, 30? I don't know. Doesn't matter, right? You get a name, it's the way it works.
As long as I know you're talking to me, I think we're okay.
Well, seeing this is just you, me, and the guy sitting on clouds in the picture, I'm pretty sure I'm talking to you. Pretty sure. Could be wrong, but mostly sure.
Ooh. I like clouds. Wait, what?
All right.
Oh, crazy! Yeah, it's gonna be one hell of a night. Let's. Yeah. I'll let you start because you're a lot better at this. I might just start screaming into the microphone. In fact, if you hear any pain screaming in the background, then it's me.
Just let it go. If he dies, then we know why. So I wanted to talk, do a couple of different things tonight, right? I want to talk about 9/11 first, just a little bit, right? Especially if we're going to get into Canada and Calgary, and you know, you're trying to tell me they're going to be like the Western civilization of America. If that's the case, they should be obsessed with 9/11 because I'll tell you what, next week, or is it next week? No, it's this week. This week, 9/11 anniversary, and it's a 20-year anniversary, my friend. 20 years. And to mark it, we left Afghanistan, who we invaded because we thought they bombed us. That shows you how smart Americans are, buddy.
Whoops. Yeah, and then we followed you, so that shows how smart we are.
Yeah, it's that peer pressure thing, you know, that peer pressure thing. Force in the game.
Is that what we're calling NATO now? Is peer pressure?
Yeah, a little bit, especially when the U.S. is like, "Hey, come on, folks," you know. But we've been talking about Afghanistan for the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to take a small break because really there's nothing good in the news about it. I gave my opinion on how much I can't stand Biden, and I'm sure next week we will have another Afghanistan update. But to begin with, I wanted to talk about 9/11. So technically speaking, here we have an AP article, and I know AP is not everybody's favorite, but we have an AP article here that talks about a lawsuit against the Saudis, right? 20 years after 9/11, we are in the midst of a lawsuit. So buddy, what the hell? Why would we be in a lawsuit? And did you even know America was suing anybody?
I actually learned several things about that because I did not know that a country could sue anyone about that. I mean, I know in legal proceedings you regularly hear the people or the state of or whatever versus whomever the defendant is, but I did not know that America decided to sue the Saudis or any Saudis, any group of Saudis for that matter. I mean, gosh, like so many of them are Trump's buddies that I'm amazed he's not trying to come out on every social media platform that hasn't banned him. or at least put on a bad mustache and tried to go back on saying with counts saying definitely not real Donald J. Trump, which of course wouldn't only last so long because his ego couldn't handle denying who he was. But he's got so many friends in Saudi that you wouldn't think that he'd be in favor of suing them at all. But he's also not somebody you want to turn your back on because you will find a knife in there inevitably. So I'm really just kind of more flabbergasted and shocked and not sure how to feel.
Yeah. So the attack, right? The 9/11 attack that now we know was Osama bin Laden's fault, right? What they're trying to say is that the Saudi Arabian government essentially just kind of looked the other way and ignored it. Now, I'll be 100% honest and tell you, I had zero idea that this was a thing. Did not know it. I could not even imagine that we would have done this. But essentially, there's families out there that are suing the Saudi Arabian government for helping facilitate and allow for these attacks to happen. I'm flabbergasted. The Saudi Arabia government has denied any connection to the attack, of course. But this year, and very recently, they've been putting some of the people that are in the government on trial and on the stand to testify, right? And that's where they're saying, hey, here's what's happening is we're now getting more information. Excuse me. We're getting more information that looks like they specifically were withholding and helping out this. These public documents that were released, essentially, which was not all of it, help lend to the fact that people believe that Saudi Arabia was complicit in this, essentially, right? They talk about how the first hijackers to arrive and were assisted by specific Saudi nationals. The man's name is Omar al-Bayoumi, who helped them find and lease an apartment in San Diego, had ties to the Saudi government, and had attracted FBI scrutiny in the past. Among his contacts was another Fahad, at the time an accredited diplomat for the Saudi government, located in LA. And investigators say led an extremist faction at his mosque. So if you go back, since they've started declassifying some of this stuff, right? They are now going back into and saying, hey, look, here you go. Look at all these different congressional reports. Look at what we've been doing. So for 20 years, we've been collecting this data to sue a country. Now, Biden is moving to declassify even more documents about the 9/11 attack. And, buddy, I will tell you that this is not very surprising to me. Not like I didn't know we were suing another government or government officials. But this is not as surprising. And I actually really hope they release a lot of documents, because how many conspiracy theories have you heard of, buddy, that actually have existed about 9/11? Especially because you're from Canada, so you probably hear crazy things.
God, I have heard some wild ones. I've heard some that make zero sense, and honestly, as the days go by, maybe it's just the fact that as time's gone by, memory has shifted or something like that. But it feels kind of it feels like there are so many, and it all depends on which conspiracy theorist you're talking to. If you're talking to, say, a QAnoner, you're not going to get a straight answer, period. If you're talking to one of the typical 9/11 truthers, there's the whole jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, or some shit like that. So that's at least two. Honestly, I think it all depends on the particular bend of that conspiracy theorist as to what exactly their choose your conspiracy adventure takes you on. Because honestly, some of them, like, to listen to them, you gotta be high as hell in order to really follow along, because otherwise you're sitting there, and when you're logically thinking it through, you're like, okay, but doesn't this kind of fall in on itself? Oh, the government knew, but they let it happen anyway. They let 3,000 Americans die in terrorist attacks just so they could justify, but wait, what? And it all falls in on itself, and all the number of people that would know, and all the usual things about conspiracies that normally make them fall apart. Like you start adding more people on, that means that's that many more people you have to make sure do not get drunk and accidentally spill secrets, and shiznat like that. Honestly, I'm just gonna say yes, because that's the most honest answer, because there's so many. You never know which one you're gonna hear.
Yeah. And what I'm hoping is that some of the documents will put to bed some of that, right? And I have a friend who is 100% a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. I mean, his belief is not as much that the government rigged it to torture its own thing, but that the government wanted to take control and essentially become like a totalitarian government dictatorship. And that they planted the 9/11 fuses and all these other things, and he believes that. So what I really would like
is that why Hannah's not with us tonight?
Maybe, yeah. I banned Hannah because I banned him because I was like, nah, can't have Hannah around. Not while
he's a 9/11 denier.
Not while he's a denier. No, it's a different friend. But Biden is talking about, this is a tragic event, right? This is a tragedy. This is something we should be talking about, a little bit more. And they're going to declassify some of the documents that I hope will point forward. Now, I will tell you, though, do you think he's going to declassify? And this is kind of a question, right? Do you honestly think he'll declassify anything that shows Bush or Cheney or any government official fucked up and who they went after or what they made a decision on?
I'm torn, honestly, like 50-50, because on the one hand, it would smear the right wingers and it might make them look bad, but on the other, they also don't really seem to care what makes them look bad. So it's tough to really say that one. I mean, it's kind of, from my perspective, it's kind of a crapshoot, but with how stacked the House is against the Democrats, I think they might try to play it safe and, not publish such damning things, lest they be accused of being deliberately divisive and inflammatory. And Mitch McConnell does his whole, toad throat thing where it like swells up as a power play, just because he doesn't want you to step on his neck or something. I guess I'm leaning more towards no, just out of political saving one's attitude.
Yep. I mean, it's America, right? I mean, for Christ's sake, Biden blamed Trump for how he left Afghanistan, which, okay, it was still Trump who set us up, but it was not Trump who had us leave. That was all Biden. So, like, fuck you, Biden. So I don't think he's going to release anything of super substantiality, really.
Yeah.
He has to be careful. Nothing he releases can affect that lawsuit, or that lawsuit will just get thrown out. It just won't be anything. It'll be gone, right? Yeah. And I think again, with them releasing some of this data, right? And we will know by the 11th of September if it happened or not. I think that we can safely say that there is some information that everybody really needs to see. Now, with that being said, though, not everybody remembers 9/11, right?
So
So
there is 20 years ago.
Yeah, there is children who had parents that died in 9/11 who don't remember the aspect. And we used to it was like, I'm trying to think. I could tell you where I was on 9/11, right? I could tell you exactly what happened, what it did, but like my son doesn't know. My son wasn't even born, right? And he had a family member on my ex-wife's side that, like perished.
Oh shit.
But, yeah, like or distant ass relative, but he doesn't
Oh.
remember. The kids don't understand the impact. They only understand what they're taught in school and what teachers are saying, right? So for the last 4 years, we've had a maniacal patriarch in office that is doing nothing but pushing this mantra, right? Now we get to hopefully see a little bit different of an attitude. We get to see these things, but it's not surprising that people don't remember, but they will never forget, right? So for example, I could tell you, I was on my way to college, right, for classes, driving, got a report on the car radio, because we still listen to the radio back then, that says, hey, there's been an attack. The following places are closed. Please do not go to them. And then I get a phone call on my big ass cell phone, right? I had a flip phone that was like this big. It was huge. And I get a call on it. Yeah, it cost $1.20. That's what it cost me every minute. But I had a cell phone back then.
Wow.
And my mom called me and asked where I was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm driving, to school." She's like, "Well, you need to come home right now." So I came home, and I'm sitting with my mom in the living room watching this, going, "What the fuck is going on?" And then I go over to my buddy's house, and we were actually supposed to see Tool, the band, that night.
Yeah.
And he got Mater got super pissed because the mayor canceled the all in-person engagements, and they shut the Van Andel Arena down. And this dude got all pissed off, said, "Why are we cowering in fear? Blah, 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 blah. We should be here celebrating this and that." We got to see Tool 2 days later, but still, it was just that weird. My buddy and I, we went and got gas for 99 cents a gallon, and we went back to his house, and about noon, we got bored and went and bought some booze and started getting drunk because we didn't know what else to do with our time,
I just out of curiosity, how old were you on that?
So in 2001, I believe I was 18 at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It turned 18.
Yeah, I didn't think you
May.
were too much older than me, but yeah. So
No.
I remember fairly well that morning, because of course I'm 2-3 hours behind New York. So I actually back then, I was in the 8th grade. I was only 12. My mom was getting my brother and I ready, and I'm in the kitchen, and I hear my mom in the living room going, "Oh my God, they just flew a plane into the Trade Center." And of course, I'm 12. I don't know what the hell the Trade Center is, so I just go into the living room, and I see the video, the live feed of the tower standing there, that great big crater and the smoke just pouring out of it. I remember watching that, and this is the one. This is where a little knowledge gets a little dangerous. Is part of my memory is that I kind of remember watching live as the second plane flew into the building, but that might actually be a false memory, or just part of the whole natural memory decay, because I can remember it, but I know that I've also seen it happen a lot of times, so I just can't remember if I actually watched it live. But I know that I definitely sat there going, "Holy shit." And then my social studies class, we spent that day in the library, that class in the library, on the 72-inch TV, watching the news all day, just watching coverage, because that was when the 24-hour news cycle really started. And yeah, it was just, I remember we were just like, "What the hell? What the fuck? What's going on? This is nuts." But of course, for little 12-year-olds in Canada, we don't know any better. We don't really understand what's going on.
No, and the point of that article is talking about how children are remembering and not celebrating, but memorializing the life of their parents. One of the girls in there, her dad was a co-pilot on one of the planes, right?
Oh.
She was little, she didn't know, but that's one of the things, is when you hear about it and you hear the stories and how awful this is, you think what is going on, right? And you become this person that has to deal with the fact that you had somebody's life taken away by another person. And the reason I wanted to talk through the 9/11 thing is because for me, for me, it's the actions and the consequences of what America has done for so many years, which we did the same way our European counter behalfs did, was go out there, conquer, control, be the ones. And when we talk about America becoming some socialist nation and these different things, I go back to these things and say, it was an attack like this that caused us to take away freedoms. It's that type of a thing that caused us to take away things. It's not the fact that I want to give healthcare to everybody or I want somebody to be able to make a living wage. It's the socialist side that you all fucking fear with the guns and with the airports and all these other things. All of that shit comes directly from the fact that we were attacked, and we were attacked because we meddled all the time in foreign affairs. We just did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tragedy. Like, definitely make no mistake. This is not to denounce the tragic loss of life, because loss of life is tragic, and it unfortunately innocent people were caught in the crosshairs of a much bigger problem and had to pay the ultimate price for it. And then their families had to pay an even bigger price in that they lost a loved one. They, couples lost a spouse, lost part of an income. A family lost its main support for finances and health benefits or whatever. And it wasn't just that there were lives lost; it's that those lives, when they were lost, there was a ripple. That impacted communities, cities, and not just so Rudy Giuliani could sit there and jerk off about how he was the mayor of New York when this happened and try to make himself seem like the hero of the day, even though he hasn't really been socially relevant since the 80s. And there's such a big, overwhelming sense of tragedy and loss, and that's not lost here. But let's also not let that cloud the fact that we can see that there were reasons, or there were events that led up to this that can kind of be blamed on America's need to intervene anywhere there was fucking oil.
Yep.
And it's an unfortunate thing, and I remember rallying against, they just want to hate on the big oil companies and rah Bush, Cheney, Halliburton, such as stupid bastards and taking our freedoms and blah blah blah. And looking back now, I'm kind of embarrassed that I used to be like that. I'm really embarrassed that I used to be like that. But this was in reaction. I mean, when I was younger, one of the books that I read, and what's funny is that it's a military book that I ever recommended to my dad, and he liked it, but he didn't like it as much as I did, because he's like, yeah, the heroes, they kind of get too. My dad is a huge Tom Clancy fan, like huge. And I recommended this one to him thinking he might like it. And he goes, yeah, it seemed a little too, the heroes always survived at the end. I was 18, 19. I didn't give a shit. I was like, fuck, they went through hell to get there. And what they said in this book was, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And that's always kind of resonated with me. And especially since I transitioned away from conservatism, I found that helped put into perspective the fact that, like the right loves to say, there are consequences for actions. The problem is that if you're not willing to admit the consequences for your own actions, that's the problem right there. And all of this interventionism and this fear of losing control over the price of oil, or the oil industry, losing control, or at least losing enough power to not feel like you have a good say, because because of OPEC, and they all decided that they weren't going to play your game. They wanted to play their own because it was their resource and you couldn't get involved. So you have to stage coups, you have to get involved in wars that don't necessarily involve you, but they involve somebody that you're having a 40-year blue ball war with, where you're always trying to one up each other, and then you end up completely funding the bad guys because they're the enemy of your enemy. Even though they're not your friend, they're still your friend, and you're going to give them a lot of guns because war profiteering is a huge fucking problem. It's just there is those direct causal events, and the constant intervention, the constant need to try to control and dictate and maintain control power in an area that isn't your own just so you can make money off of it, you're going to piss off a lot of people. And when you piss off people who are so constantly disenfranchised and they are so passionate about what they believe in, that they're willing to die for it, literally die for it, knowing that they're taking others with them, you're just walking up to a hornet's nest and kicking it and getting pissed off when they sting you. And it's the dumbest thing.
Yeah. And I agree. The goal is to not take down, I'm not trying to downplay the event or the holiday that we have, right? That's really not it. I just, the problem I have is this, and this is an NPR article, right? And they talk about all these children missing their parents, and one of the people in that article says they will always hate men because of this, and another person in the article says they will always hate people of that specific, region because of this, and it's like, this is NPR, for Christ's sake, and I guess they're just allowing people to tell their story, and what bothers me, yeah, it's perfectly fine. What bothers me, though, with that whole thing is really, Keith, it's just that why can we not get the stories and then talk through them? Why do we not have, people with support groups? Why are we not also highlighting that, I guess? And I get it. For me, let's declassify the documents for 9/11. Let's admit our wrongs where they are. And now that we know we obviously can't handle foreign interventions, we need to stay the fuck out of other countries so we do not have to commit the same tragedy again. With that being said, let's move on to our next segment. So the next segment is about a missing Kenny. Is Kenny missing? Is this going to be like an episode of South Park that we're going to like reenact here? Like, I know Kenny dies a lot. Is that what happened? Why is Jason Kenny missing in action from Alberta's COVID cases in Calgary or Alberta?
Oh, we're all wondering. Of course, now we've got another shitstorm that we're worrying about in Alberta, like our province. BC beside us is literally on fire. I don't know if they're still as on fire because we're not getting the smoke clogging up our city. But we are dealing with a fire that is called the fourth wave of COVID. As it stands right now, our cases are back up.
You've had 4 waves.
Sorry?
You've had 4 waves.
We're in our 4th wave.
Holy shit.
And the second and the 3rd wave so far was the worst, but the 4th wave, it's looking to get even worse. So yeah, our first wave was, last May, June, and then it petered off, and it actually stayed pretty stable until October, when all of a sudden everything started climbing back up again, and then we saw it peak mid-December, which is when we locked down again. And then we got cocky and started relaxing restrictions again in January, where things had started to taper down. They were calming down. And then between February and March, it was kind of stable. And then end of March, early April, spiked right the hell back up for a couple of days in May, and then died off. And then in July, because Kenny had proposed best summer ever, that we were gonna get back. We had our stampede, and it was gonna be great, and there was gonna be all the.
Oh no!
Holy shit! That was embarrassing. I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
That was fun. Whereabouts did I cut out? Because I have no idea.
Just the last little bit where you were saying that he disappeared during the last bouts, and then you cut off.
Oh, right. And oh, great. My laptop's doing this damn green screen thing again. That's fun. All right. So, yeah, he disappeared from the National Post article that I shared. Was August 9th was his last public appearance. And the last time he spoke to reporters, and I made a note of this one because I couldn't really find if this was in person or virtually, on August 13th. And then he was not seen again. He made no public addresses until I think it was the 31st of August, when he did a fireside chat on Facebook Live. And deep breath here. And he had the audacity to say that it is important for leaders like him to avoid burnout. As though
hold on. Can I ask a question then? So he did disappear because he got sick. He actually disappeared because he disappeared because he didn't want to deal with it. That's it. Like, this is not a joke type thing.
That's more or less the suspicion, because he's not owned up to where we still don't even have confirmation where he was. And part of the problem with this is that during his absence, he was not responding. He was not responsive. He had like auto tweets or somebody running his Twitter account and all of that. Even our chief medical officer, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, wasn't really saying much. Tyler Shandro, the corrupt minister of health, he wasn't saying a damn thing about it. Nobody said where he was. Nobody said what was going on. And cases were spiking. Cases were on the rise again. And all of a sudden, he just walks right back in like nothing happened.
So hold on. Now I have another question. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you a lot because I have another question. Because this shit's crazy as fuck to me, man. Like, this is some crazy shit. So the next question I have is, where the fuck is the rest of your government? If you have a prime minister or a premier, I don't know what the difference is. But
premier is like a state governor, and prime minister is like a president, but Canadian.
All right. So when your state governor disappears, why the fuck is nobody at the federal level getting involved? I mean, like, how do the decisions get made? Do they just get without them?
Well, typically what's supposed to happen is that they're supposed to appoint somebody who will act in their absence, but this wasn't done. Nothing was really said. I believe because it wasn't quite a drastic state of emergency at that time, the federal government would have had to take specific action to step in, but they're kind of busy because they called this whole federal election thing. So they're all kind of focusing on that, dealing with that.
So,
oh, good Lord. Oh,
I'm not going to play it. Don't worry.
I'm not sure if my internet keeps cutting in or out.
You're fine. I can hear you.
Okay.
So your federal government is not getting involved no matter what.
And I'm still not 100% sure why they didn't. I haven't seen a whole lot because, again, there are so many other fires going on. Like, honestly, at this point, this is just a dumpster fire distraction. Like, he came back just in time for the fourth wave to be spiking. They are our nurses are so burnt out. But that's part of a little bit of a later thing. But basically, he just fucked off, didn't care, didn't tell anybody, didn't appoint anybody to look over things while he was gone. He didn't, go to the government and be like, hey, I need to take some time off. I'm not doing so good. My headspace is a little dark and, I feel like offing myself. Because I think he was worried that somebody might have handed him a means to do so. Not to make light of that whole thing. But it's honestly, there was no paper trail. There was no announcement. There was no acknowledgement. All he said is, it's important for me to not be burned out. And we're like, but you haven't done anything. How could you burn out? Which is why people are so pissed off. Actually, this was fun. So this is actually from where I went to my post-secondary school, Mount Royal University. One of the political scientists there basically said, at this point, it looks like they're governing by tweet. And all I could think was, oh my God, he idolizes Trump so much, he's trying out his governance style. I am only waiting for his own personal Twitter to take off so he can start saying whatever horrible racist shit happens to cross his mind.
Yeah,
because he
but Trump, in fairness to Trump, he never did disappear, right? I mean,
exactly.
we had ridiculous statements from
Yeah.
him when he didn't know how to handle the pandemic, but he never just walked off the job. And this other article that you brought, the one from the Edmonton Sun, it gives a really good description. I want to read it real quick because I think it pertains to a lot of stuff, right? It says the party line that has been taken is that Kenny is on vacation.
Yep.
Yet he is the leader of a multi-billion-dollar operation which is experiencing a major crisis. It raises questions that if Kenny were a CEO of a major corporation that was in obvious need of leadership, would he be relieved from his duties and someone else step in and take control? Shareholders would demand that. I'm a shareholder. In fact, all Albertians are shareholders. You can use the other name, taxpayers, or a descriptor, voters. Right? That's serious. That's serious right there to me.
Oh, very. Yeah. Yeah, he is. I don't think he has very good business skills, because if he did, he probably would be doing business and not politics. Sorry, I wish I had an explanation as to what the hell's going on here with my damn internet. It keeps cutting out on me, so my everything loading. Anyways, yeah. But you are absolutely right. He hid, and in any position where others could actually vote him out, he would be. But because he's weaseled his way into such a I can't even say essential position, but he's weaseled himself into a certain nest of power where he can get away with this shit. I mean, I think the man is atrocious. I think he is an abomination, and I think he should be run out of the province with pitchforks and torches, and I would happily lead that charge. But for him to just say, let me be blunt, I think it's time the media stop promoting fear when it comes to COVID-19 to start actually looking where we're at. But they summed that up perfectly by saying that sounds like a man in denial without a plan. And that's right there. That, I think, perfectly sums up Jason Kenney as a quote-unquote leader. That is all he has done. He's messed up this entire pandemic. As I was mentioning earlier, we the first wave, we were good. We didn't really have much of an issue, and it's because we had proper lockdowns. People worked from home. We had something in place for people who weren't able to work to still earn a living, so we could keep the economy going, which makes sense. And then as soon as he felt he could start easing things back to make himself look better to his deplorable base, because they are deplorable as fuck, he's like, okay, yeah, we'll start, scaling back. And instead of it being, a gradual thing, it was we'll just whatever, it's fine, because he knew that his core base of supporters had no problem with this. They in fact, they were the ones saying, no, we got to get the economy going, we got to get people back to work and blah blah blah, because that's pretty much what Albertans are trained to do, is become workhorses. And that's pretty much all his party has tried to do, is remind us that they see us just as exploitable workhorses.
Yeah, and I think that's again, that goes to capitalism, right? And you're even more socialist up north than we are, but I think that's the largest issue, right? Is the fact that we have people that just want money. We need to go back. We've never found a way, and this is what drives me nuts, is because we've never actually found a way how to sustain life in society without capitalism, right? Yeah. It's just not a thing. And we have nobody, at least in America, has done a damn thing to try to figure that out. Now,
Yeah.
the next article that you had was from Rabble.Canada, right? And in this, they actually talk about Ontario heading to a complete lockdown for 1 month.
Mhm.
And they talk about how their premier, who is also conservative, which that's weird to me that Ontario was that conservative. I didn't think they were, but
yeah, we were all blown away because they were such a liberal stronghold, and federally speaking, they're a big part of the reason why we typically have liberal-leaning governments is because of Ontario. But they had a provincial liberal government that just didn't jive well, and I guess pissed off enough people, or enough people bought into the pablum that is conservative ideologies, and they decided to go with a guy who was only famous because his brother was the crack smoking mayor. I wish I were kidding. I really
man.
do. Because this real life right now, not even South Park could come up with the shit that we're in. The
All
things
right,
that we
I
have
hope
to
they
deal with.
do. I hope they do an episode on Canada. If
Oh,
you're listening to this, Trey,
man, Trey,
seriously,
please.
let's fuck Canada up. Oh.
It would long overdue.
But okay, so I want to go back to this idea just for a second, right? I just so you have a couple conservative premiers, premier. They just it's just a ridiculous. You know that's a ridiculous name, right? Like
Yep.
that's just a ridiculous moniker. I don't understand why you would call it that. It's like it's like you're trying to sound fancy. Not you. It's like Canada's trying to sound fancy without really being fancy. Like it's a premiere. Well, what are you gonna fucking premiere for me? You're gonna premiere a shit show. That's what I see. I'm hearing you're premiering shit show 1 and shit show 2. I don't know. I don't usually like those type of movies, but I guess if there's enough like graphic violence in it, I'll be okay with it. But I don't really just want to watch people get sick and die. That's not a good look for a horror movie.
Yeah,
If you're gonna
it's
get
just
sick, at least eat people's brains or something, you know?
oh yeah. Although let's face it, after what we've seen with COVID, I think a zombie apocalypse would pretty much just end us in a matter of days. I mean, the number of people who would be like, "No, it can't be spread by a bite. That's just liberal propaganda." See, I got bitten.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
oh
that's not a worse
no.
idea.
Yeah. That would happen. So anyway, sorry. I don't mean to
Problem is that
derail.
they're the ones with all the guns.
That's-
Cruel irony.
Well, yeah, probably. At least maybe in yours. In America, there's guns in liberal homes too. But
Yeah.
because America is just crazy about guns. Anyway, so if we talk about it, right? We talk about you have a couple of conservative premiers, you have numbers counting, and again, I get it because in America we're not really doing that good either, right? Our numbers are declining. We're not mandating. We've got people in Michigan, for fuck's sake, protesting kids wearing masks in school. Protesting. Can you hear this? Protesting. You know what I want to protest? Going to war. You know what I protest? Black lives being murdered by police. You want to know what I want to protest? The fact that we continue to lock people up for petty crimes and petty drug offenses. That's what we should be protesting. Not whether a kid should wear a fucking mask while they have to, do this. And I went to a concert this last week, right?
Ooh.
And they didn't mandate masks. We thought they were going to. They didn't. When I was not sitting at a table away from everybody, and I was in the mosh pit, on the edge of the mosh pit, trying to crowd surf, but I'm too fat really to get off the ground. I wore my mask. And you know what? You know how much my bill went down for the alcohol consumption? Because they couldn't just sit there and drink, because it's like, you got to think about it, right? You got to drink in your hand. You got to figure out how to get it under your mask. And finally, like my wife just said, you should just got a straw, you dumbass. And I was like, damn it, I didn't even think about that. But like I stopped. I only drank between the sets because I got weirded out because everybody was around you. People are sweating. It's a metal concert, so everybody's sweating. I sweated like crazy. I probably lost 10 pounds just being inside of that environment. But anyway, we wore masks and we didn't complain. And my daughter's in middle school. And in Michigan, they're not mandating masks for middle schoolers or high schoolers. but those are going to be the next most vulnerable sex, right?
Mhm.
And anyway, it's just crazy to me. So you have one premier disappearing, the other premier doesn't seem to give two shits, right, about
Yep.
it. Your ICUs are full, and
Yep.
now the NDP wants an emergency debate in the legislature.
So
What the fuck are they going to debate? What is there to debate? I don't understand.
you want to know how fucked up this story is? So I actually made a mistake in grabbing this article because if you scroll up to the top, look at the date of this article. It is November 23rd, 2020.
Oops.
So this is not even the first time that Jason Kenney's gone missing to the point where the news outlets were like, where is the premier? Where is the guy who's supposed to be leading us? This is a fucking problem. This is from almost a year ago. And I didn't even pay attention because you know what I Googled? Or to make sure that I was finding articles for this? Jason Kenney missing. That was it. I didn't realize I had to put 2021.
Oh my god.
I didn't realize I had to specify August 2021. No. Because this isn't even the first time. And I thought I had been clever enough to weed out possible confounding because I found articles from early 2020 asking where he was. Now, to be fair, the descriptor or those were actually a little bit about his leadership and or lack thereof, rather, because the pandemic was right from the get-go just bungled and fumbled and horribly handled. He just got lucky the first little bit. Now we're paying the price for it.
That's all right. That's crazy. All right, so I'll grant you that. That's so okay. Hold on. We gotta. Oh my god. So your premiere is not even really premiering anything. He's just disappearing. He's gone. It's twice.
Yeah.
Twice. He just
2 or 3
disappeared.
times at least.
Oh my god.
Like
Oh.
I am just.
You're giving me heart palpitations here, bro. Like this crazy. That's just insane, man. That is okay. When is your next election? Because if this guy is still in office at this point,
that's a good
and this
question.
is what you should be for. You should be Kenny for Halloween, 100%. Like you should go around. I don't know how you would do this, but you have to go around as a missing person. So maybe you gotta make a card that says missing person and like frame yourself in it, and then get a mask that's got Jason Kenney on it, and they just say, if you can find me, please call this number, and have it be like some campaign office of his, and so or something like that, so that maybe people will just randomly call.
I'll go as a milk carton with missing person logo on it.
Even better.
Oh, you beautiful son of a bitch! That's a brilliant idea.
I'm serious. If like, I wish our podcast made more money because I would fly to Canada right now and videotape the fuck out of that. I would videotape you going around all over the place. 100%.
That would be friggin' amazing. So we have fixed elections every 4 years, and so unfortunately that means we could have to put up with him for another year and a half. And there was talk within his party that they were actually trying to undermine him and get rid of him. And that's just how bad of a leader he is. And those are from people within his own party. Now, those are the people who are good at dividing the right-wing vote as well, because they're the ones who did it in the first place. And now I haven't checked names to verify that they're actually the party that was splintered off from the original Conservative Party before this whole United Clown Posse started. They were the Alberta Conservative Party splintered because there was this Wild Rose Party faction that was actually more right wing. So we're talking like what the hell was it? The hell's the crazy guy's name that ran for Libertarian? Crap! What the hell?
I don't know. You got me. We went over it
Gary
once.
Johnson? Gary Johnson?
Oh, in America, yes, Gary Johnson.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought you meant in Canada. I was like, I don't know, dude. We had one episode on that. I'm not going to remember that.
Oh no, that's Maxime Bernier. No. This was
okay. Yes,
Gary I was Johnson. Trying to cater to a more American demographic, but yeah, they're the ones who split the right, and they were trying to do that again. And I was really hoping that it would work, and that there would be another chance for an NDP government for 4 years. That would be
So I just Googled this. I Googled,
Okay.
can a premier be removed? And the only way to remove a premier is the party, is the actual party themselves. So that would be like if Donald Trump started saying, I'm gonna take the government, I'm gonna take all these federal soldiers and we're gonna go over to Biden's house, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but if Biden lives after this, great. If he doesn't, I'll just stay president for a while. And then all of a sudden the Republicans are like, hold on, Trump's, talking about murdering somebody. We got to do something about that. That's crazy. That's insane to me. Like, we have, at least in America, we have a little bit more control over that.
Yeah.
Like, our governor can be recalled. They can recall our governor. Our governor can be put in a public eye where they can be removed. And so if you get enough signatures and you can get this into the court system, and if our governor in Michigan was super atrocious, it would easily get through the court system, because you'd have judges saying, just come on, let's get this in there. And you could have her recalled.
Yeah.
Now you have to, there's guidelines, right? We can't just go, we don't like Whitmer, so therefore we're going to remove her from office. That's what they're trying to do, or they were trying to do. We can't just do that because you don't like her. They have to go after something that she did. So last year in Michigan, when she locked everything down, they found it unconstitutional at some point because of the fact that she didn't follow specific channels and overreached her power. And then that's when people are like, well, we should recall her now. And I don't know, it's almost the end of 2021 and it still hasn't happened, And I don't foresee it happening before 2022. And at that point, we got another election,
Yeah. So, because I remember that this was something that they had actually promised to change. The UCP had promised to change the way we can recall politicians. They tabled it. They were looking at it. They had a majority. They would have had no problem, but they tabled it. Because what would have happened is that it looked that as long as there was a petition and they had enough signature, 40% of a riding's entire population must agree, which means they would need to have signatures from 40% of that particular riding in order to get somebody out. Now, this is, I guess this is because municipalities didn't have access to provincial voter lists. But basically, it was something that they ran with on their platform. So we could have had a chance where we could have at least recalled our MLAs, so our representatives in legislature. But they were keeping the thresholds pretty high just to make sure that it couldn't just be overturned. Which I do actually somewhat agree with, in the extent that we shouldn't give enough power to a vocal minority such as anti-vaxxers, because for some reason they organize really well for a couple of days, and they could interfere and make enough problems with this if they could get enough people going to do a recall. So I do understand that there needs to be some standards, and I'm all for that, because I don't think it should be that a small dedicated group be allowed to have that much control over the vast majority of the political sphere. But they did still table it because, well, there's a chance it might bite us in the ass, so we don't want that. So even Kenny said elected officials have a responsibility to Albertans, and Albertans shouldn't be able to hold those officials accountable should be able to hold those officials accountable through their term, not just at the ballot box. And if those words actually carried any weight, I'd be in full agreement with him on that. But they're just empty promises from a guy who knows that if he actually does what he says he's going to do, he's not going to have power for long, because eventually enough people will realize he's all sizzle, no steak. And in Alberta, we take great pride in our steak. There's a reason why there's an entire Letterkenny rant about Berta beef, and it's because Berta beef has a reputation. God, did my
For
internet
being the
cut
best beat.
for
Being the
being
best beef.
fantastic, for being absolutely fantastic. And our farmers do an amazing job. I try to support.
Have you ever sent me any? You've never sent me any, so I don't want to hear about it.
Can you actually send?
You can. It'll cost you a fortune, I'm sure.
Ugh. I think you would rather I spend that fortune on my computing software and technology.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
In the meantime,
All
I'm
right.
just waiting for a tab to switch over. That's fun.
So the next article that you had was Kenny is now decrying crises of the unvaccinated while announcing $100 incentives. Now, how do you decry the crisis of the unvaccinated? Is this like a new term that Canada's coining? Crisis of the unvaccinated? Is this like something that we have to like learn, and like, is this a new hashtag, or what the fuck is that?
No, not necessarily.
No?
You see, it's him trying to shoot back against this idea that the people who are not vaccinated are the ones who are going to suffer worse through the Delta variant, and that's kind of being proven time and time and time again. But the bit that there's also this whole $100 incentive. Well, upon his miraculous return, because he realized the best thing to hide a controversy is to create a bigger one, Kenny announced that there would be a $100 incentive for any people who have not yet had their vaccinations to go and get their first or boost or second shots between the September 3rd and October 14th.
So
That's right.
Did you just say first order shot?
First
like,
or second.
Okay. So this is not a Star Wars thing. He's not like saying, hey, we have a first order, by the way. We just don't want to tell you. We got a Kylo Ren in the back. He's in the back room. He's still growing up a little bit. But we created a whole new military force that, you know, we might or might not use. That's a Trump thing. There you go. That would be like Trump.
That would be spot on Trump. No. No, unfortunately, no. And because it would involve Star Wars, it would be infinitely cooler and more interesting. But it doesn't. So it's tragic and sad and infuriating, because basically this is setting up so that anybody who has been vaccine, I forgot my camera is not properly working, so you can't see my scare quotes here. So any vaccine deniers and COVID deniers, basically who dragged their feet, muddied the waters, deliberately lied about everything that's going on, threw a shit fit because I don't want to wear a mask. They're basically being bribed into taking a vaccine, and they're being told that you'll get $100 if you go get your vaccine, because Kenny is so desperate to get numbers down so he doesn't look bad. And
all right, so hold on. I gotta stop you there though. Okay. I don't know if I actually disagree with offering the incentive. Like, I get your point. Like, I get that this is an awful thing. We should not. Why are the taxpayers having to deal with this? You know, this and that. But I think we are at the point. You guys obviously are at the point where if that's what it takes to get people through the door, I don't know what else to do. I guess.
No, I totally see that, and if it weren't for the fact that these are the shittiest people who are basically being patted on the back and being said, you know, here you go, here's you know, all of this, while the rest of us who actually did what we were supposed to and worked towards ending the pandemic, while they worked to continue the pandemic in a weird twist of irony that is very lost on them, it seems like they're being rewarded for being assholes. And the biggest problem is that this kind of reinforces the behavior that they've exampled. And you know, that when I showed the Kevin J. Johnson shit fit because he they refused his payment and accused him of theft when he tried to walk out with an item after he just threw $5 on the ground and said, "Nah, there, see, I paid for it." And they're like, "No, we're not taking your business. That's theft." And that type of mentality, it's enabling that particular attitude and is basically spitting in the face of those of us who actually did. And there's something that I don't know why it's only just occurring to me, is that this isn't even the first attempt at a cash incentive. Earlier in the summer,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, earlier in the summer they announced, I can't remember how many prizes, but they were announcing a few $1 million draws for any Albertan who had received their vaccination as a form of lottery. All you had to do was just put your name down and confirm that you were getting the vaccine, and booyah, you were entered in a chance to win one of X amount of prizes of $1 million. To date, I think only 2 have actually been announced, and I don't even know if they made a big deal enough about that to really get these people who we know play the lottery to try to play those odds.
So, okay. So again, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but what's your recommendation then? Like, so I get your point. Like, why are we rewarding bad behavior? Will this lead to future bad behavior? First, I would always caution us to say, okay, well, let's look at what history says and what history does. You know,
right.
And you are talking about $100, man. It's $100, and I get $100 is a lot of money to people. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not like $1,000 or $500,000 or even $100,000. You know, like in Canada, I'm sure $100,000 doesn't go as far as it does in America because Canadian bucks stuck. But $100,000 is probably at least half a house in Canada. That's my guess.
Depending. Cheap house. It depends on the neighborhood. In Calgary, I don't know if you'll find a house for under $300,000.
Well, how the fuck do you guys make $50,000 a year and own a house then? Like who can own houses? Like nobody?
You can't. In Calgary, now I guess that's not entirely fair to say. There are places in Canada where $50,000 a year will get you pretty decent living, because there's not a whole lot of other income in the area. But in a place like Calgary, if you're making less than say $80,000 a year, you cannot own a home. You can't. You won't be able to make your mortgage payments. You won't even be looked at for a fucking mortgage if you're making that little.
Wow.
Yeah. So sorry, and I guess
I'll derail the conversation more.
no. I focus more on my grievance with it. But there is actually another solid grievance in the next article. Basically, the Alberta government has also proposed wage cuts for the nurses who have been on the front lines this entire pandemic. So they threw them to the wolves, and after throwing steaks and juicy blood and meat and all of that at them to get them nice and stanky, and then said, okay, here you guys go. You guys are going to deal with this. We're going to put you guys at risk. We're not going to do anything to really protect you. We're going to fuck you over. We're going to undermine you at every chance. We're going to cut your budget, so there's going to be fewer of you. And oh, by the way, now we're going to start rewarding the people who make your job even harder. So they're saying that nurses need to take a wage cut, even though MLAs have had raises that they didn't deserve because they have not actually done anything reasonable.
What's an MLA? What's an MLA?
Sorry. MLA is a member of the Legislative Assembly, so basically that's our representative at the provincial level. Sorry.
Man, you really are. You guys are sounding more like America every day. Like, holy shit.
Little America, right? So basically, the UCP has said that nurses need to take a pay cut. They need to play. They need to level the playing field by taking a pay cut. And then all of a sudden, they're saying, "Oh, by the way, the people who spat in the faces of nurses, who harassed Alberta Health Services staff, people who actively went out of their way to make this pandemic as difficult as possible and unmanageable as possible, they're going to get money, but we're going to take money away from the nurses." And it's conspiratorial to think and draw that conclusion, and I know it's all circumstantial and wouldn't really hold up as an argument, but it definitely seems like that proposed cut would be a perfect way to pay for some dumbassery like this. Because Kenny has lost billions of dollars. He's cost this province more money than he promised to bring. In. He's lost, I think, almost $8 billion of our provincial money. $1 billion of that at least was Keystone, which he knew was dead in the water, but he still had to save face. So gambling addict's gonna gambling addict, I guess. And then another $1 billion was just given away to I think it was Encana, or it was a big energy company that within less than a month cut 10,000 Albertan jobs and left. They got $1 billion tax rebate or tax cut, and once they got that, they left. They fired 10,000 Albertans. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how all of the money he's trying to, throw at this problem, where that's all going to come from. And then he's refused subsidies from the federal government. So it very much reeks that he is trying to run a provincial Ponzi scheme by paying for bullshit with bullshit cuts.
All right. So I'm going to stop you again. I have to play contrarian, I guess. I just can't always. I can't not be a little bit of a contrarian. So
Hitch would love you.
He does. I do. Anyway, I like Hitch except for his certain comments he has, and the fact that he's like pro-war.
Well, we can forget that because one, he's dead, and two, that's how
you can't. You can't forget that. Anyway, it's in kind of. We're not talking about Hitch. Damn it, we're not talking about Hitch. So I feel I agree with you that the cuts, right, feel very reflective of a middle finger, B, mismanagement of government funds, and C, a way to pay for his $100 incentive. Though I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure that the cuts will equal more money than will be paid out. But
for sure.
But here's where I would, and this is where I don't want to call this a non sequitur. Like, I don't want to say that these two arguments don't belong together. Because you do sound a little conspiratorial.
No, I'm fully admitting it.
Okay, but what I would say is you still have to. We talk solutions. We talk around here, right? We talk about this pisses us off, but this is what we should be doing, right? Or this is who we should be holding accountable. And by all means, we should be holding Jason Kennedy or Kennedy. Oh my God, Jason Kenney accountable, right?
Right.
Well, if he'd ever show up, but
yeah.
I still think that I don't actually disagree with the $100 incentive at all. I do aggressively disagree with the pay cuts. I'm on board with that. I think that's bullshit. And that's the type of shit that America looks at and goes, hey, look at Canada. You don't want to be like Canada. They're socialists. We don't want that. We don't want to pay our healthcare workers less. Though our healthcare workers in America, folks, are not fucking getting raises either. They might not have pay cuts, but they're not getting raises. And hazard pay was paid out only when it had to be. Now, I still challenge you to say, how do I get more people to get vaccinated?
Right.
Because that's a problem, Keith, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a problem. And I don't disagree with him. I think $100 is not good. You're not enticing these anti-vaxxers with $100, man. Like, it's just not that's an enticement. But maybe that's why I laugh this off and just say whatever, because I have anti-vaxxer people I know that would not go get the vaccine, who have actually gotten COVID, who would 100% be like, what the fuck do we need $100 for?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I laugh at his attempt to give people money for a vaccine for $100, but I applaud the attempt to push more people into getting the vaccine, no matter what his motives are. I don't care if it means he tries to get reelected. I don't care. I need more people to get vaccinated so less people get sick. So people that are working in these ICUs are less likely to die, get burnout, and do all these things. So
Absolutely.
I ask you, I implore you, how do we separate these two? Because I get your point, but at the same token, I feel they're non sequiturs together. Like I don't feel they have any correlation to each other per se.
It's very much just kind of a very conveniently timed things going on, so that's it kind of seems it's easy to lump them together because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I do know that I think it's roughly 70%, 70-ish% of eligible Albertans have had their have had at least one dose of the vaccine. So that would mean 30% of eligible adults, and since I was off by about 1.5 million people, there's 4.4 million people in Alberta. I was wrong to say 3 million, so I apologize for that. That's on me. Out of 4.4 million, 30% of eligible adults, and this is basically now anybody over the age of 12. If my computer decides to load up faster, it'll help me find a better demographic breakdown. Alberta by age group. There we go. That's a good Google. Okay. So basically, we're looking at 0 to 4 to 12. Why the hell did that happen? That's bullshit.
I don't know.
Anyways, so we're looking at under or roughly 500,000 to 600,000 people are still ineligible. So we're looking at just under 4 million. So we'll say 3.5 million. So if only 70% of 3.5 million have done that, and now I need my calculator to load up so I can actually do proper big people math here. Just off the cuff, that's still nearly 500,000 to 750,000 people who would get this. So multiply that by 100, you're looking at 50 to 75 million roughly to pay for this. At least that I can't even say it's like the napkin calculation because I didn't even write that down. I just tried to do that one in my head because my software is a piece of shit and refuses to load properly. So it definitely it does not seem financially viable to be setting aside 50 to 75 million. Now, of course, you could also suspect that, let's say, people they won't, that it's not going to work. Crap. Oh, that's 2011. Okay, so I have apparently just pulled numbers out of my ass from 2011. There we go. 4.4.
All right.
Yeah. So anyways, so basically
fixated.
roughly, yeah, I am. That's consequence of the fucking ADD. So anyways, so we're looking, we'll say about $50 million being set aside for a bribe, basically. And that's like that seems like a little excessive, but when you compare it to the fact that the man has literally gambled away billions of dollars, it really is just kind of like a pocket change thing at the end of the day. So to your point on that, yeah, I get it. And yes, absolutely. If it gets more people vaccinated, woo, we can deal with the fact that this was a really stupid idea slapped to the face of the nursing staff who already had to deal with this, to the people who have been trying their damnedest to get this done, and weren't even given so much as a thank you or an acknowledgement, and were just told that it was their personal responsibility, that meant they needed to be or that was how they were going to go through, and or they
Yep.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yep.
Wow,
So-
that was hell of a brain fart.
There you go. So we're gonna let's move past this
Yes.
a little bit here, right? So
Yeah.
the next article I have is about why the MLA should take pay cuts, and I'll be honest, we don't have to go through this. I could just tell you, I don't need numbers to explain why a legislator should not get a pay increase versus the people on the ground. And maybe it's just my socialist belief that if your employees are working harder than you don't get a bigger raise than them. And
Yeah.
I've argued this, and it's actually not been to my benefit more than one time, when I had employees reporting to me, because it was like, well, don't you want to make 70 grand a year? Well, sure, but not at the expense of giving my employee a 25-cent raise.
Yeah.
So you're willing to give me 10 grand, fine. You're willing to give them 2 grand, that's 12 grand. Give us each 6. Call it a day.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you the same thing I tell everybody else. I'll still probably go look for another job because you're still underpaying all of us. But I mean, at least let's be fair about it. And I think again, we can go through the numbers if you really want, but to me, like to me, what this says is I mean, and these numbers are atrocious. Some of these not premiers, but MLAs. Which what does MLA stand for?
Member of the Legislative Assembly.
Stupid as fuck again. God damn it, Canada. What is wrong with you? Why are you naming your shit stupidly? Member, what is it again? Member of the Legislative Assembly. That is so fucking dumb. Like, are you guys trying to be a superhero group? Is that what this is? They're like, ooh, our people are part of superhero groups. That's what we are. Anyway, so they talk Alberta, not here you go. Alberta and Ontario, both conservative provinces now, are the highest paid legislators in fucking Canada. And I get that you have more people, maybe, but what the fuck, man? Is it just because they're conservative, they pay themselves more? Is that what this is?
That's my suspicion, because as I've been want to highlight at many opportunities, Alberta was run by the Conservatives exclusively for almost 50 years, until the NDP broke that cycle for 4 years, and now we're back. So for 52 years, 48 of them have all been Conservative. And yeah, so Alberta is the 3rd largest province in population-wise, but it is the highest paid MLAs. Ontario is the largest province population-wise, and they're only the 2nd highest. Do you know the 2nd biggest province in Canada, population-wise anyways?
Quebec.
Sorry. Good fishing in Quebec.
Yeah.
And they are in the bottom half. They're below average for what MLAs make across the country. That's fucking embarrassing.
It's fucking embarrassing because everything they got some good whiskey in Quebec. Cute Quebec.
Oh, I've heard.
David, I gotta watch that again.
And when Kenny first took power, he said, I will take a pay cut, and so he took a 10% reduction. Do you know what his salary was after his 10% reduction? Because as the premier, gets a different pay grade, whatever.
He's probably 170.
$186,000 a year.
Jesus.
So basically, he's a bloated, useless piece of shit that's so drastically overpaid. He could pay, his salary could be divided among 3 people making $60,000 a year, and then still have a little extra left over to maybe go towards an infrastructure or something. 3 people at $60,000 a year is what it takes to pay this guy who disappears for a month and then tries to hide it. No, it's fine. I totally deserved it. So that's
crazy.
Yeah. And those are the people who are saying nurses are overpaid, doctors are overpaid, our healthcare workers whom we have had no problem sacrificing on the front lines, that we have actively campaigned against, are all overpaid. And that's the kind of people. In fact, Kenny even hired on the former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who was the last Conservative Prime Minister and is not very popular among non-conservatives. I'll tell you that. His government was very anti-science and did a lot of sketchy shit. His son was hired in an advisory position for $200,000 a year. There is a propagandist known as Matt Wolf, who basically is a right-wing mouthpiece. He is basically like the Tucker Carlson of Canada. Actually, I shouldn't even say that because he'd probably take that as a badge of honor.
Don't give them ideas, man.
Yeah, all he does is regurgitate Kenny's talking points and conservative gotchas if you will, and he gets paid over $100,000 a year to troll. So that's the kind of government we've got. That's what Alberta has decided should be running it. So that's the caliber of the modern conservative now.
Oh man! So the last piece, and we're pretty much out of time. I don't want to go through too much of this, but essentially the last piece is articles you gave is that you guys are now hiring contract nurses that are making $150,000 to $170,000 a year, which is essentially double the pay of a regular nurse. And again, this is what happens when you get into capitalism, right? And what this is going to do is this is going to actually drive nurses to quit their job and go work for contractors. It's just going to perpetuate the problem. And really what the government needs to do is step in and say, whoop, hold on, folks. Let's not do this. You don't need to hire contractors. Let's just pay nurses more.
And this is kind of a hill that I will... It is kind of a conspiratorial hill that I will happily die on. Tyler Shandro, our health minister for the UCP, there was an ethics investigation into him because his wife was a founder of a private health insurance company. And it looked an awful lot like everything that he has done during his tenure in that position has been to actively work against public health to endear Albertans to the idea of the American model of a more privatized healthcare system. And basically it's creating sabotage. It's, deliberately underfunding and cutting so that they are always short-staffed. So it always looks like they're not, handling it properly, and it looks like they don't know how to manage things. Another problem is that Kenny has a friend on the board of AHS, Alberta Health Services, and our health. That
sounds criminal, man. This is like some mafia shit right there. That's some mafia shit.
You want to know how it gets even worse? The ethics commissioner is a UCP donor, has donated tens of thousands of dollars to the Conservative Party. And that's why the ethics investigation into Tyler Shandro was thrown out, because they said, oh, no, there's no conflict of interest there. And then when a doctor posted a meme about Tyler Shandro thinking about all the profits that his wife's health insurance company, which is called Vital Partners, by the way, just so everybody knows and can avoid that company. The caption just said, I wonder how much profit will be for Vital Partners when I finish dismantling Alberta healthcare. He found that doctor's private information illegally, went to that doctor's home illegally with his wife, and screamed at this doctor in front of this doctor's family about how mean he is and how he shouldn't post things like that. All of this was done illegally. He should have been brought up. He should have been removed, but he has not, because that's what the C in UCP stands for, apparently, is corruption. So they may not necessarily be the mafia, but they think they are.
And when your government allows it, there's nothing you can do about it.
Basically.
With that being said, let's wrap up. Let's go to our quick saves. Let's do something happy for a second. We're going to do something happy. So my quick save for the week, and I talked about this back in October, November-ish. There's a PlayStation exclusive game called Ghost of Tsushima. And if you have not played it, they have a really good multiplayer that's free multiplayer. And they have an amazing storyline. They just released the director's cut with an updated story, so they have a new island you could play. But what drew me to this, and this is what I got excited about, is the Sony and Sucker Punch are not working in little silos. They're reaching out and finding people that are more authentic, right? That are part of that culture. And so this video blog, and I'm not going to play it because, I don't want to get DMCA'd, but this video blog of the new island has the music and how it was made, where they got the music from, all these other things. And it's beautiful. Like, this is like insanely, crazily good. If you have not played this game, and I'm telling you, You don't. Well, you don't own a PS4, do you? You don't own a PS4, so
I do
you
not.
probably can't play with me. The multiplayer I'm playing all the time. I actually played games before I came on the show today. So, but that's how addicting it is. But the story and the story play and everything behind it is really fantastic. Very, very culturally appropriate. And the visuals, like the actual graphics of the game, holy shit, man! Like they are down to a T. They work through some of the nuances you would think from the Japanese culture that you would just never think of before. And I cannot say enough how much I loved this game, and think that even if you don't want to play the multiplayer or do any of that stuff, and you just want a really, really good story, this is the game for you. Here.
Ooh.
And they are using local sources to help them build the story and the music and the culture behind this game. And that's why I'm excited about that game. And it's a really good game. And it's fun to play. And I think you should get this game, Keith, and buy a PS4 or a PS5, and we should play all the time. Anyway.
I'm not seeing the problem with that one.
You don't, do you play video games? That's not like a thing of you don't like video games, do you?
I like video games. The problem is that I have ADD, so I kind of have weird approaches to them. Like I drive people nuts because I get in, and when I have no idea what the fuck is going on, I'm just kind of like going on trying a bunch of different things, and then I'll get kind of going, get on a roll with something that I like, and I'm like, oh, that's neat, and then I just completely abandon one thing in lieu of another, and then finally I'll figure out a good system, and I'll get going, and then I'll get really addicted for about a week to 2 weeks, and then after that, all of a sudden, I will completely forget that I was addicted to that video game, and it might take me 3 years to remember that I played it at some point. So I like video games. I'm not great at them, and I'm not the most reliable partner.
All right, fair enough.
Oh god.
Your quick save for the week is...
It admittedly disappointed me a little when I pulled up the website because I haven't been there in a little while. But I've always remembered it. I've always kind of kept it in my back pocket. I just never really used it. So basically, so what I put for notes in this one is, have you ever had somebody ask, "What's the harm?" when you're talking, or when you're like having a skeptical discussion about some sort of a pseudoscience, like acupuncture or vaccines, shit like that? Well, there's a website called what'stheharm.net. Now, it hasn't been updated much recently. The guy who originally started it, he's still around. He's still doing stuff. He just doesn't seem to be. This just kind of seems to be a, they've got a good cross section of a couple of years worth of stuff. And this kind of sparked or came back to mind. And the reason why I really got back into checking it out was a couple of weeks ago, because my wife's spending account is, those don't tend to roll over. So you just, spend it when you can. Basically, I went to a physio appointment just because I have had issues with my hips, and I'm working on getting back into weightlifting, and I don't want to hurt myself and have another back injury because I'm really getting tired of dealing with that shit. It gets old quick, not being able to pick up your damn socks off the floor. Trust. And so I went in, and she did this thing called dry needling that I've only kind of heard of. When I looked it up, it seemed that it actually kind of was divided in the acupuncture community, where on the one hand, the acupuncture community was like, yeah, no, that's totally one of us, but proponents of dry needling is trying to distance themselves from acupuncture because it's trying to seem like a more of a legitimate science. And the use that it had, and I tried it because I was curious, and I'm weird for some reason. Apparently I enjoy having needles stuck in my muscles and pinged, and wow. And it did feel weird, and I don't know that it actually did something other than, tickled and felt some weird pains. But anyways, I was talking to a friend of mine at work who normally agrees with me on a lot of this stuff. We have some pretty fun conversations that pisses off our libertarian coworker. And she, I was saying it's a, the bull kind of like a, people try to lump it in with acupuncture and blah, blah, blah. And, because they want it to seem like bullshit, and people are trying to not make it seem like bullshit. And she was kind of pushing back on acupuncture being bullshit. And I said, acupuncture has never been proven to work better than placebo. If anything, it's actually been worse than placebo. And she was like, well, like, what's the harm? Or, placebo's has its own effect, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but you're pushing bad thinking, and this can actually hurt people. And then I remembered much later after this conversation, oh, that's right. There's a website where they actually talk about why these things are dangerous, and they go through and they actually they put out article, or they have not necessarily obituaries, but they basically put out the cases where these particular brands of pseudoscience and quackery have been problematic and either hurt or defrauded people, because they don't just talk about medical, they also go into supernatural / paranormal, religion, fears, which they have like apocalypse, metal toxicity, satanic ritual abuse, terrorism fears. There's misinformation, like internet misinformation, GPS navigation. They have vaccine denial and hesitancy among the pseudosciences that have hurt people. So it's a fun little read to check out, and maybe if it gets enough traffic, I think his name is Tim, will pick it back up again and start updating it some more, putting more of the skeptical works out there. But it was actually promoted on Skeptics Guide, which is one of my second favorite science podcast after this one.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah, so it's it's really interesting, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that, sure, believing in stuff like that seems harmless on the surface, but there are actually consequences and adverse reactions to some of these things. So when somebody says, well, what's the harm in them believing in something innocuous? Well, we've got a website that can help.
Which is crazy, right? And I think a lot of people need this, but I don't think people will pay attention to it. I think it's something that you're just gonna have to share. Oops,
yep.
My glasses are stuck. You're gonna just have to actually share every time somebody says, "Whoa, what if?" Boom, here you go.
Yep.
Boom, here you go.
Exactly.
All right. Well, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and wrap up? Thank you all for joining us tonight with another amazing episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Hannah not having a sick kid. And hopefully he'll be back to join us. We're going to recap Afghanistan. And I will probably present my discussion on my book that I read, the workbook, about why work is extremely toxic. And we should abolish it. With that being said, thank you. Have a good night. And we'll see you next week.